Alright, welcome to AIC Off-Road. I just want to do a quick update video. I posted a video a few days ago from a trip I took with my kids. Trail's called Montana Mountain. If you're in Arizona, you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, high ground clearance, an all-wheel drive with at least 9 to 10 inches of ground clearance. It's an awesome trail. It's fairly easy, fairly simple trail to do. I'll post a link to a trail guide, the one that I personally have, in the description below. Highly recommend it. It was a beautiful trail. There was snow at the top of the mountain. It was 70 degrees at the bottom of the mountain. Just a beautiful day. But it was really my first trip out with my new engine. Couple things. One, it doesn't overheat, doesn't struggle at all like my previous engine. It was constantly a battle of trying to keep it cool. I don't have a problem with this engine. It makes me so happy on that regard. However, and I don't know if you can see it here, zoom in, you'll see that the valve cover gasket is leaking. Now, my previous engine, I replaced that. The exhaust and intake manifold gasket, that's leaking too. I took it back to the shop where they put it in. They said they didn't see a leak, but I'm sorry, it's leaking. I gotta replace it. The oil pan gasket's leaking, which I had replaced on my previous engine. And when I do that, I might as well replace my rear main seal, because I'm going to be 95% of the way there replacing the oil pan gasket. Probably take that oil pan off, clean it up, spray paint it a crazy color. Like I did my last one, I painted just a bright blue. This one I might go maybe a fuchsia, like a red, just have something different. But then the other thing that's weird is back here, zoom out a little, back there behind my air box on the inside, I have an oil leak there. So I gotta figure out what's leaking there, because that's crazy. So I gotta go back and redo a lot of the work I did with my previous engine in regards to just clearing up some of these leaks, because it makes a mess everywhere, and which isn't good for the environment. It's wasting fluids, it's wasting money. So I got to get those things taken care of. So I'm glad I took the trip, but it definitely gave me a list of things to work on. Also on my list is my driver's side door. The window, if I roll it down all the way and then try to roll it back up, it's as if there's like teeth missing or broken, and so you just get this click, 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 and it doesn't roll up. So you actually have to lift it up and half quarter of an inch or something, so then it will catch and then roll up. And you can roll it up and down as long as it doesn't get below, say, this far on the window. I don't know if you saw me reach over there, but as long as you don't get down too far. Oh, there we go. You can see. Don't want to flip you off. As long as it doesn't get below that point, you can roll up and down all you want, but you cannot roll it down all the way. Also, some other plans I have going on. I posted this on the forum a little while ago, but driver's side seat has always been a bit soft on the left side, and it's only been getting worse as time goes on. So I'm probably going to be replacing both seats with something that's a little bit more supportive and something with a little bit more cushion, so my back doesn't hurt so bad after long trips, because that's definitely a problem I have. I have my eye on a really nice internal roll cage. It's a bolt-in roll cage. I'm not doing serious off-road crawling, and it costs about the same as it would cost to have a cage welded in, but it's definitely something I think I could do myself, installing that. So it's definitely on the list, as well as a third row for the back. And so I'm definitely going to put a third row in there, but I'm going to do it at the same time I do the roll cage, so everything gets lined up the way it needs to be. And that's another reason for putting in the roll cage, is that third row. Give it the whole vehicle a little bit more structure and strength. And from what my understanding, also adds a lot of rigidity to the whole shell, so that when you're off-roading, the body itself isn't flexing as much, which helps the vehicle last longer. I don't have to deal with rust here, but when you're off-roading and you're flexing the chassis, that does weaken the chassis over time. What else do I have planned? like some new wheels. I used to have the stock silver wheels. And I don't know, I believe they were silver to begin with, but I'm probably going to replace those eventually. Or get some spacers to stick them out a little bit. But that will mean that I'll have to start cutting up some fenders. The other thing we're going to do is the front suspension. Let me drop my camera down. I'm going to take that all apart and redo it. When I did it the first time, I'd worked on suspension before, but every suspension I've done has been an independent suspension. And so even lifting and lowering it, just the geometry that you have when you're working on it is the same. I mean, you're not really changing anything. Where with a solid axle like this, and with your adjustable control arms, there's a lot of adjustment. I don't think I got it quite all correct. And one of the things that tells me that is when I have my sway bars up out of the way, and I have them up out of the way as far as I can get them, they still hit the spring, but only on the passenger side, not on the driver's side. And I did measure them, and I have them both exactly positioned correctly, or I shouldn't say correctly, I have them positioned the same. And they still, it still bangs on the passenger side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I also need to install some bump stops, which requires me to take the springs off entirely anyways. And so when I'm doing that, I'm just going to take the controls arms off, remeasure them, make sure they're set up correctly per Metal Cloak's instructions when I do that. So that shouldn't cost me anything other than a lot of time. So I'll probably be starting that here in the next couple of weeks, just because it's still pretty cool out in the mornings, and that's not much fun. And if I don't have to, I'm not going to work when it's 36, 37 degrees outside, since we are, as you can tell, outside. But yeah, so far so good. Engine's running good. Still has that squeal, but it's definitely a lot less than it was. It's leaking oil pretty bad. I do need to eventually do my oil pan gasket, but the person who owned it before me, they had Pep Boys do a lot of work on it, and I don't know if they did it or he did it or even the previous owner before that did it, but all the bolts are stripped. So I'm going to have to go through and figure out some way to get all the old bolts out, then replace all the old bolts before I go through it and redo it. And if you look at least, I don't know about other year XJs, but on my 89 there's at least 3 different types of bolts on there, so that's going to be fun. I think that's it as far as this update goes. I definitely have some big things planned, some fairly expensive things planned, so it's going to be a minute before I get to them. That's why I'm going to start on the suspension first, because it's not going to cost me anything, because I have to save up for the other items. So looking forward to giving you those updates. If you have a question about anything I've talked about, I'm happy to give you any information I have, especially on the internal roll cage. It's really kind of a neat design, at least in my opinion it is. I've seen a few Jeeps out there with it, but not a ton. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Happy to answer those, and looking forward to giving you some updates. Thanks for watching.